If you don't think you can homeschool because you're not enough of something or you're not a particular type of parent, then this is the video that's going to make you feel a lot better. I'm not patient enough. Okay, were you patient enough to have a baby when you had one? Were you patient enough to have a toddler when you had one? We go into these different seasons of life quite often without any of the tools that we're supposed to have. Maybe we've read the books, maybe we've taken the classes, but as we all know, theory is very different from practice. And when we actually get in there with our kids, we often find that all the things that we thought we would do as a parent, all of the things that we thought we were equipped with, no, none of it works, right? It is the same thing with homeschooling. You don't think you have the patience to be a homeschooler because you think, oh my gosh, when my kids are home on break, I can't wait to send them back. Or even when we just have one day off from school, we're so sick and tired of each other by the end of the day, we can't wait for them to go back. Here's the thing. Your relationship with your child has been built around the fact that you hardly ever spend any time together. You don't have to exude a lot of patience. You don't have to spend all this time with your kids because half the time they're gone. When they are home and when you start actually spending time every day, kind of like a muscle, you start building that, right? You become much more patient than you thought you'd be because you have to practice patience. It is not something we're all born with. It is not something that homeschooling parents all just suddenly have or they've already had in spades. And so, yes, it's super easy for them to just slide into homeschooling and exude all of that patience there. It does not work that way. In fact, a lot of times the reason we're not patient has a lot more to do with our expectations of what should be happening than it does with us just not having patience. And I actually have a whole video on the whole idea of not having enough patience. So if that is something that you feel like you really are struggling with, definitely go watch that one. I'm not intelligent enough. A lot of parents think, oh, well, since I haven't gone to college or since I didn't get a teaching degree, then I don't have what it takes. I don't have all of that knowledge. How am I supposed to teach my kids stuff that I don't know? That's what curriculum is for, my friends. All you need to do is get a book that tells you the stuff that you want to teach them, and then you share that information with them. That is all teaching is. It is sharing information with somebody else who doesn't have it. Now, yes, there are some handy tips and tricks and things that you can do when your child doesn't understand. And those are things that you can go to other homeschooling parents and say, hey, trying to teach my kid this and they're really struggling. Do you have any hints for me? Do you have any suggestions? But just because you don't have that information all dormant in your head somewhere doesn't mean that you can't find it when you need it and then share it with them. As a credentialed teacher, I do have a piece of paper that says that I am prepared to teach elementary and middle school. But can I tell you something? That does not mean that I have elementary and middle school education all downloaded into my head. It has a lot more to do with my understanding of development. It has more to do with my ability to manage a classroom than it does about content. The content comes from the curriculum. The content comes from your kids saying, hey, I want to learn more about this. I want to do that. It doesn't have anything to do with what knowledge do I already have in my head. That can help. Definitely helps to have a lot of knowledge in your head. But it actually sometimes can make things a little more difficult too, because the more we know about something, the less we're able to relate to somebody who doesn't know. And we forget what it's like to be at their level and to have to bring things down to them. So it's actually not a bad thing if you don't have a ton of information. It means you can come alongside your child and say, hey, let's go learn this together. I don't know it either. Let's learn it together. And you come alongside as a facilitator rather than as a top-down knowledge provider. And you're not only showing them what it's like to be a learner, but you're showing them what it's like to get an idea for something you want to study and then just go find it. Is that not the kind of lifelong learning skill that we want our kids to have? This is how we teach it, by modeling it to them. I'm not creative enough. You have maybe seen some blog posts or some Pinterest boards of homeschooling rooms, and they're all decked out with these super cute hand-drawn posters and anchor charts and all sorts of cute things that you think, oh my gosh, not only am I not creative enough to create that kind of stuff, I don't even like that kind of stuff. I don't want a room that looks like that. I don't want to spend my time decorating like I live in a preschool or I live in a kindergarten room. And actually, that's okay, because the environment has a lot less to do with what your children are going to learn than your ability to just say, hey, let's figure out what you want to learn, and then coming alongside them, like we've already talked about, and helping them learn those things. When you have a room that is filled, all of the walls covered and all of this stuff and colors everywhere and pictures, and that's actually incredibly distracting. That's not a good learning environment. How is a child supposed to focus on the thing that they're supposed to be learning if their eye is constantly being drawn to this new poster and these colors and these lights and all these things? That's an overstimulating environment. That's not an educational environment. It is 100% okay to have a very simple room. It's 100% okay to not even have a homeschooling room. Every house we have lived in since we started homeschooling has had like the perfect homeschooling room. This cute little loft space or this cute little shared area in between their bedrooms. We walk into the house when we're first looking at it and think, oh, this would make a great homeschooling room. Guess what room never, ever, ever gets used for homeschooling? Our homeschool room. Our kids hate being there because it's always like the most removed room from the rest of the house. They want to be down, typically in the kitchen because that's where the food is, or they want to be in the family room because that's where the really comfy couch is. They don't want to sit at a hard table. They don't even like sitting at the kitchen table to do their work. They want to be comfortable. And can you blame them? I would much rather be comfortable too. So all of our homeschooling, and like 99% of our homeschooling that happens at home, typically happens in the family room, on the couch, in the nice comfy spot. So if you are not the kind of mom who wants to spend her time that way, don't. And don't feel a single ounce of guilt about it. It does not matter what's on the walls. It does not matter if you are creative. It does not matter if you're Pinteresty. What matters is, are you willing to come alongside your kids and help them learn? That is the most important part of homeschooling. Another thing a lot of parents worry about is being organized enough. I'm not the administrative type. How am I going to keep up with all of this paperwork? Okay, I will admit that it is important to be able to keep up with whatever paperwork your state requires. However, you are not the only mom in your state who is not into organizing all that paperwork, okay? There are so many ways that you can get around that. One of the biggest is to go into those Facebook groups for your state and say, hey, parents who are not very organized or parents who don't like, keeping up with paperwork, how do you do it? What do you do? What system have you found that really works for you? Another thing to think about is the fact that there is no one right way to organize. Organizing for me means putting all of the stuff that I'm going to need in a box and knowing that I can go find that box when I need it and organize it later. I do much better with organizing when I'm on a time crunch, like, oh my gosh, we need to get our paperwork all together for XYZ. So I sit down and I go through everything and I put it all together. That works for me. Yes, it means that I maybe have to spend an hour or two doing it, but I'm not the kind of person who's going to keep up with it every day. I'm just not. It is way more important that you know what paperwork needs to be done and you figure out a system that works for you. Maybe it's posting things on a calendar. Maybe it's keeping things on a corkboard. Maybe it's tossing everything into a box and then setting a date on the calendar when you're going to go through everything in that box. It's kind of how I do my taxes, actually. Whatever works for you, that is the most important thing. So again, don't look at all these systems and think, oh my gosh, it has so many moving parts. There's no way I'm going to keep up with all that. You don't have to. You do not have to be super organized. You can figure out ways to make it work with your personality, and you can figure out ways to streamline things. You can figure out how to use systems that other people have created. It's going to make a lot of things a lot easier. I'm not conservative enough. I don't have any jean jumpers. I don't like to wear my hair in a bun. Okay. You do not have to be a Christian. You do not have to be conservative. You do not have to be any particular thing to homeschool. Whatever you are, I can almost guarantee there is somebody else in the country who is homeschooling as well. Your views, your religion, your values, your priorities, your skills, your personality type, all those things. There is not a single one of those things that precludes you from being a homeschooler. Now, where you happen to live, you might find it more difficult to identify, to find other parents who look like you, think like you, talk like you, whatever. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist, like anywhere. You may have to do a lot of that, community building online. You may have to set aside a day where you all, drive to one particular place to meet together because none of you live near each other. It might take a little more work depending on who you are, but there is no particular person who cannot homeschool, and there is no reason why you have to be a particular type of person to homeschool. I'm not extroverted enough to homeschool. This can be a really big one. This can be really hard for a lot of parents. If they are really introverted, the thought of having to spend a lot of time with their kids, doesn't matter how much they love them, they just think, oh my gosh, I can't spend that much time with someone. I need a break. It is totally normal to be concerned about that. And I actually have 2 videos that I did on this whole idea of me time, needing me time as a homeschooler. And those of us who are introverts, and I'm one too, we know that we need that time. And I think a lot of that concern comes from this idea that you do have to be with your child all the time. When your kids are young, they really should not be spending a lot of time on academics. You shouldn't be sitting at the table for an hour at a time. In the first grade, they're maybe doing an hour, maybe an hour and a half if they're like really into what they're doing over the course of the whole day, not all in one big chunk. As they get older, they get more independent, right? I would say it's probably like the 3rd, 4th grade levels that can be the most difficult for those of us who are introverted, because they need more time. They're able to do more academically, so you're spending more time on academics, but they aren't quite independent yet. And so they need us for a lot of what they're doing. So it can be a little more difficult in that 3rd grade, 4th grade, maybe a little into 5th grade too, into those years. Yes, it can be a little more difficult, but there are things you can do to guard yourself against that burnout. One of them is doing very simplified homeschooling. This is an approach to homeschooling that is designed to be kind of burnout proof. Now, I shouldn't say proof, but burnout resistant. And it also is a really great approach for introverts because it builds in a lot of things that all kids can do independently. And it makes it a very streamlined approach that you can get through all of your academic stuff fairly quickly, and you can allow your kids to have more time on their own and yourself by yourself also. And that could be kind of a real lifesaver for those of you who are introverts. So if that is something you're concerned about, it is fair to be concerned, but you do not have to let it stop you from homeschooling. Now, if you can think of any other stereotypes, any other homeschool mom memes that I have forgotten to address, all you need to do is bring those to mind and then tell yourself, nope, I don't have to be like that. Because there is no one type of homeschooler. There are working moms who homeschool. There are moms who are not super crazy about other people's kids. There are moms who don't want to go do stuff with a bunch of people all the time. There are moms who don't want to be home all the time. They want to be out with their kids and out doing things. They don't want to use a lot of curriculum. They don't want to do co-ops. They don't want to do classes. That's okay. None of that is required to homeschool. So think about who you are, what other kinds of people you want to connect with, start looking for those other kinds of parents, and just realize that it does not matter what kind of parent you are, you can homeschool. Thanks so much. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.